Welcome to the user review of the Panasonic GH4 Micro Four Thirds DSLR. With the addition of the YAG, this camera is certainly fit for purpose. But more about that later. What I'm going to do is show you some footage. I went through to Edinburgh to film the new tram system, and then we went to Calton Hill to get some interesting footage. The GH4 is full of menus, lots of menus, and as far as I'm concerned, every menu is a winner because it brings in a wee tweak that allows you to do something as far as video is concerned. Remembering that Panasonic have made this camera with video first and photography second. So let's have a look at some menus throughout the video, and hopefully you'll be a wee bit more wiser as to which menus to choose from. Pressing the menu set button will get you into the menu system, and you're looking for the motion picture, which I call the video menu. The interface unit will only appear when you've got the YAG attached. By default, the audio input select is body, and you have to choose XLR. SDI remote recording, you don't need that unless you've got an external recorder. LED brightness is high or low. I set it to high. And the 3G SDI type, well, basically it's default to level B, and I just keep it at that. Because the Yagi takes different power sources, you have the ability to choose at what voltage you want the alert to come up. In my case, I choose 11 volts. It's important to note that if you have the YAG or a micro HDMI cable connected to the camera, your sound output, in other words your monitoring, is record sound only. This is a bit of a nuisance because it causes a small delay in the sound, and without any of these things connected, you actually have a choice which is known as real time, where there's no delay. So I hope a firmware upgrade is on the way to change this. So here we have the strangely named YAG. Now if I just show you the side first, because this is the business end of the YAG, you've got a 4-pin XLR for power. Now a lot of people actually gripe on about that, and I did when I first saw this. I thought, why have we got an external power? Why don't they add the battery into the unit itself? Because there's probably a lot of space in there. But that's the way Panasonic chose to go with this. They maybe thought it was more professional to have a 4-pin XLR. You've certainly got your 3-pin XLRs for sound, and that makes it for me, because to be quite honest with you, at the moment we're using the 3.5 mini jacks with the radio mics, which are fine. But if you want to use a professional microphone like a Sennheiser, especially in a very windy day, you really need this phantom powered XLRs, and what a difference it makes. The other thing it's got is it's got SDI outputs. Now the reason it's got 4 outputs is so that if you've got a 4K external recorder, a lot of them will take the 4 inputs, which is basically your picture is split into 4. So let's have a look at the back of the YAG. And this is where basically you've got your VU meters, you've got your sound pots here, stereo mono switch, which is very useful. I use that an awful lot because there's nothing worse than having one track of sound. So you stick it into mono, it gives you 2 mono tracks, which is absolutely fine. And the other thing is you've got line, mic and 48 volts phantoming. So everything you need for professional sound, the YAG does it. And last but not least, let me show you the HDMI output. So here we are. Under here is the full-size HDMI. Now, that is a major bonus simply because under here runs a micro HDMI, and to be quite honest with you, it's a pain in the backside. It's too footery. In other words, it's too small. So by the time you put the YAG on, it then gives you full HDMI output. And the other thing I'm going to show you in just a second is how to downscale this when you're shooting in 4K. Down to HDMI record output, you then are presented with 422 8-bit. Now you can change that to 422 10-bit, but that's only useful if you're using it for an external recorder. And remember, when that is switched to 10-bit, you can't record internally. 4K down convert, 1080p. Now I've set mine to 1080p, but you can set it to auto or off. If you're using the YAG, you do not have any option other than to use the 4-pin XLR for power. It's no great shakes. At the end of the day, I went for a Hawkwoods bespoke version, which is a BPU battery adapter with a 4-pin XLR cable. Reason being is if you see the difference in size between the DSM U84 and the DSM UV160, and the weight is half the weight, so that's why I went for that. And the other thing is it also goes into a pouch which you can sit at the side, as you can see, on a belt, and quite inconspicuous. 96 frames a second, or should we say slow motion. Now, the one thing that kind of bothered me initially was you have to do it at 25p, so you're really going to see the benefit if you put it onto a 50p timeline. Wait and see. It looks fantastic. In order to get variable frame rate, you have to go down to this setting here, and at the bottom it says VFR available. So that's the one you choose. From there, come out of that menu and go down to variable frame rate and go to set. Now in the setting, you can go 96 is what I choose because that gives you slow motion. You can go all the way down to 2, but basically if you want slow, it's 96. And make sure that when you come out of that, the variable frame rate is actually on. So I'm just going up to Cathkin Braes, which is basically the window over Glasgow itself. And we're going to take some shots with the glide track slider and 4K. And what I'm going to determine is, can 4K in an HD timeline negate the need for a slider? We shall find out. So here we are at Cathkin Braes, and what a view that is. Fantastic. There's two things you need to know about doing slider shots. The first thing is it's important to have a constant speed. And secondly, I personally think it's important to actually go slow, because if you go too fast, by the time you see and take in the shot, it's gone. Because remember, you've only got that distance there to make that shot happen. Now obviously you can get longer sliders, but to be honest, for what I use it for, that's more than adequate. There we go, the sun's just appeared and I've got enough of it in 4K to hopefully get a result. I'll just double check my exposure, mind you. After downloading the new firmware, take the .bin file into an SD card and then put it into the SD card slot and press the play button. If you've done it correctly, you'll see this please wait, startup version, say yes, and it'll take about 5 minutes. And after 5 minutes, the camera goes to standby and you switch it off, switch it back on, check you've got the new version, and that's you sorted. Panasonic have been very innovative and they've allowed you to turn your GH4 into a proper video camera. So what happens is you get yourself a Manfrotto MVR 901 remote zoom and connect it up to the remote socket here. And with a power zoom lens, you've then got full control over your zoom. Absolutely brilliant. Mirrorless is the key to the Panasonic GH4 success, along with its ability to record 4K internally. The YAG SDI XLR adapter takes the GH4 out of its semi-pro field, as this is the first DSLR to have video as its priority. The 2.3K OLED viewfinder is a joy to use, alongside the 3-inch OLED touch control vari-angle LCD monitor. The menu is rich in video features like Zebra, SynchroScan and bars, to mention but a few. 1080 50p 200 megabits a second is phenomenal quality, alongside the 96 frames per second slow motion. I love the quality of the faster micro four third lenses, especially the Leica 42.5mm f1.2 lens, which is being used to film this piece to camera, and the ability to have a power zoom lens controllable with a Lank zoom control is fantastic. Lastly, the PAL NTSC mode makes this a true go-anywhere camera for general video and documentary work. So this is how it used to be done. 200-foot mag, 60mm film. Basically this is a manual lens and it's a 12-120 Ingenue, which is a French lens. This is a Rolls Royce of lenses. And this is how documentaries were made back in the 80s. Today, of course, we've got cameras like the Lumix GH4. And obviously, you don't need the YAG, but it basically gives you that professionalism that you don't get with other cameras. Sadly, I would say that cameras like the GH4 have surpassed old 16mm cameras like the Eclair. I say sadly, obviously, because these cameras were absolutely fantastic, but they cost a ton of money, and that's the beauty of today's filmmaking. Now we're in the realms of being able to buy a camera for say £1,300 with the YAG, say £2,500, and you've got yourself a fully fledged professional workhorse, and you can't say fairer than that.